Hello guys, Capricorn King here, coming to you again with the divinely knowledges from the transcendental abode, transmitting through and traversing the intonational density levels of the planetary system that we are condensed into. So I'm coming to you with the knowledge that I have been blessed with, but there is no me in it. It's just an infinite expression. I'm a fractalized expression of a fragment of God expressing itself through this infinite loop stream, and I've come to you with the divinely knowledge. So I'm going to exploit this limited reductive English language phonetic influence of the neurons in the brain to try and do you some good. So here we go. So the topic of this video would be on spiritual practicing and how not to convince yourself that you do not quite need it yet, because there's a lot of us going around. I've done it myself where I've said, oh, I don't really need this, and if you say that you don't need it, that's an inference, and very strong inference, that is quite the opposing to what you're saying, because the ego thinks that it's competent enough to do the being of what it is, but it isn't. It just occludes the process, gets in its own way, and completely exacerbates things. Because when you're spiritual practicing, you are always eliciting consistently the sound vibrational essence of the resonance of the heart. And the heart is the core of the nucleus of the stability of what everything is. The core of the nucleus of the stability of what everything is an effect of. But we are affected by things externally, exogenously, that are still inclusive of what we are, just different expressions of different densities. But we're trying to, what we're here to do is to elapse all that back into itself, into the nucleus, so it's not on all these cotangents and precipitating into a more chaotic state. And I don't mean chaos by complete pandemonium, I mean chaos, the birthing process is referred to as chaotic, and then something beautiful is blossomed and evoked from that chaotic natural organic process. This is what I mean. This is what I don't mean atomic bombs going off everywhere, just a big atomic mess, atomic bomb mess. I don't mean that. It's all the divine order of things and the way they fluctuate and interweave, and then reintercess back into themselves to revert and guide itself back through the evolution of the heart again, back into the stream of love. And that's what we're currently going through. We have intervallic phases, and right now evil, which is just a dualistic conceptualized reference, but it is inundating our ability to see anything good. And I mean, I say us because the majority of the masses are under the influence of their ego, so it's very unstable right now. But we, the divine beings, have sent here for a mission, if you want to put it in three-dimensional terminology. It's almost like a mission that we've come through. Like we are we are this intervallic phase wave of fractal expressions with more of a purified energetic resonance to shift this into a more transcendental impetus, to shift it out, and to retract itself back in and of itself. So yeah, and the main topic of this video, let's have some tea here. Terence McKenna impression coming right up. It's a pleasure to be here. I've got a double shot of espresso. You're in for a treat tonight. So yeah, back to the point. So yeah, we got to induce frivolity sometimes, because that's non-sympathetic. Frivolousness. It's non-sympathetic to the outside world that's currently in a state of distortion, because it's in a dualistic state. Dualism, polarities that aren't interfused, creates friction, and friction is a form of sustenance for an agenda behind it that wants to knock us off the tangent of love, because love's centripetal, which means harmonious, congruent flow. It's converging the polarities. It's like this, and there's an agenda behind it that doesn't want that. But we're here to appease all this within and of itself, and to recalibrate ourselves back into the heavenly divine planes, and that's what these YouTube videos are about, just to re-evoke that essence in us. And it can be done through conversation, through chanting, and all these things. But this is one of the topics was to this video. The main one was that I am a spiritual practitioner, and I follow them. I don't like to label it, but in Islam, I follow the Islam way. It seems to resonate strongly more with myself, because of the people involved in it and everything that's just included in it. It just feels right. Feels like they're getting it in their own way, and that just seems to be in alignment more of with the resonance of this focal point, this Nordic point of an expressive attention, being what God is at this time, and that just seems to resonate with this. So I go with that, and I mean the spiritual practices that you do, I find that you need them, because like I've just said earlier, when you think that you do not need these spiritual practices, you more than likely do. The ego will try to refute the fact that it doesn't, and to come up with all kind of concocted false justifications attached to the reason why it shouldn't do it, and it will do that, and it will fight it. It wants to know that it's doing it, because it wants to survive, and the ego is got a very insatiable appetite, and it's very rapacious kind of propensity, and it's got its own autonomy. It's an autonomous being within a being, a sub-being within you, and it corresponds to this agenda that wants to use us, and it's exploited through that and used. And it is very deep stuff, but I'm going all in, and I know it will help some of you guys and probably make some kind of sense to why things currently going off the way they are. and current affairs. So the spiritual practices, you need them, because it just keeps consistently re-eliciting that essence of the heart, and it's submitting. The ego doesn't want to do it, so oppose that to appease it and to recalibrate yourself into that essence again. You put the ego down when you're praying. It's not just about being in reverence to some iconic personification of some kind of God that's out there, that exterior. No, it's not that at all. It's putting the ego down, say you're not doing this, you're not running this, and every time it is, it only exacerbates things. So yeah, that's how the ego operates. And I found that also this month is Ramadan, and I'm practicing that currently. And not just when it's Ramadan, but I found that certain friends, which I'm not going to mention the names, just certain associates and that, when they don't have certain things, because when you don't have certain things, that is the test. That is the test in itself. Because sometimes what we do is, when you ain't got a cigarette, when you ain't got a spliff, or when you can't have a coffee because you've got no money, or you've got this, right, these are additional things, they're not essential to your state of being. So when you do these things, when when some people are minus them things, that's when the true character is exhibited. What are you going to do? When you don't have these things, how are you going to respond? Are you going to respond through the volition of the heart, or are you going to react on the basis of the ego? And I find a lot of people, I'm not going to mention who, but some people, their whole attitude changes when they don't have these things, and they're meant to be spiritual. And that's the test. What are you gonna? Are you still going to exhibit a good energy and frequency resonation? Because you should be in a constant state of reverberating a reflection of that always. It doesn't matter if you don't, it's still part of the all-inclusive encompassing energy of what God's doing, playing a game with itself, realizing itself through each fragment of its expression. And it is just a game at the moment, but I just think that we need to really reflect and do it. These things that we're doing habitually, the ego will contrive notions attached to that to solidify itself around the basis of having them things, instead of trying to transcend them things. It doesn't. It familiarises itself with the comfort of it, and we're all about resensitizing that into a more transcendental state of being, so that we don't need these things. Because you take most things from some people and they don't realise that they were habitually smoking spliffs or cigarettes or this or that, and you take that from them, are they still going to be the same person? And this is what it's about. And times are coming close and things are culminating into a precipice where we really need to reflect on things that we need or don't need. Because without that, what are you? What if you're in a situation where you're secluded somewhere when you haven't got access to any of them things? Because then you've got to let go. You've got to capitulate, which means to give in the mind to that dualistic state, to give it into the spirit and the infinite pool and ocean of the spirit, and then just attract things on the basis of that, of the abundance, and to know that you are a sufficient generative being that will attract what it needs to sustain what you are and to propagate your way into this realm. Because we're not here to play a game. Yes, we take it with frivolity and have fun and humour things, because the whole thing's not serious. But simultaneous to that, we're not really here to mess around and play a game and dabble in the egoic things through, and then justify why we do that, because that's just not going to work. The things cannot coexist. They just can't. You can't say, right, I'm cultivating this spiritual thing, but then you've got these very rigid, habitualized patterns that if you was without, you wouldn't be the same thing. You wouldn't be the same spiritual being cultivating that message, basically. So we've got to really reflect deep on that. So yeah, that was one of my other points. And the spiritual ritualized things, we don't have to do them incessantly. We just have to do them sufficient enough to reconnect, and you'll know when you do not need them anymore, because you will have resensitized yourself for it to become a reflex to just be in that state. And I'll admit, I'm not going to be in denial. I'm not ready for doing that yet. I'm not ready to stop meditating and to stop chanting and submitting my ego and doing practices that are relative to that. I'm not ready for that yet. I've tried it. I'm finding my tea, I thought it was on the floor. So I'm not ready for that yet. I'm still a little bit weak concerning being enticed by the exploitative system that's using you as a form of fuel, an extraction source, battery source, through you subconsciously consenting to its opulence, being deceived by that, thinking you need it, and because it's in a frictional thing where you think you lack sufficiency within you, then you've just basically diluted the potency of you. In exchange, you've exchanged your sovereign state of being through God, through that false system. So that knocks me off a little bit, not too much. So I get slightly enticed. So in order to stay retracted within the essence of my being, I have to keep doing these practices to revert back to that, keep reverting back to that, till it becomes a reflex to just not want anything to do with that and just to serve. Because before you know it, you sat outside a cafe with a coffee. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it depends where it is. And if you're at a state that you're strong enough to fortify your energy while you're out there in that environment, if it's a heavily saturated environment, how can you be a conduit to God? And you've got to make sure that you're strong enough to cut that one coffee and then go home and do your thing. But I did find that when I stopped the spiritual practices, I thought I got a little bit audacious, which means brave, and I thought, right, I'll be fine. No, I wasn't. Yeah. So I never substitute that. Always go and do your practices. And I find Ramadan, which is the Islam thing, I find it is very helpful, because it's a month where you have to fast till I think it's 9 p.m. Yeah, and that's not fasting in the traditional cultural influenced sense, which is a bit obstinate within itself. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about fasting, not just starving your stomach, but fasting from all forms of stimulus, which means going into your city centre and being subliminally inundated by all these things. It's abstaining from that sort of stuff, from going on your phone, from watching TV, all these things. And if you're on the spiritual path anyway, by now you should have known that these things are not good for you at all, because they're part of the conditioning behind that agenda. We should know this by now. So all these things do is condition you neurologically in your brain, right? That's what these things do. They're set up for that. It's pimping itself, really. It's pimping itself for its own energy. And it's absolutely bizarre when you think really deep about it, because the agenda behind it, you think, if they're part of God too, why cannot they not access that direct conduit to God? But it's set into, I think it's set for a reason, that default setting, so that they seem like they're in deprivation. And that scarcity they reinvert on us that are abundant, divine, illuminescent beings and angelic. So they induce that upon us to get their energy, and it's through the TV and the radio and all these things, very dense, low intonational frequencies that only give the ego what it needs. So then you substitute sovereignty for the ego, which is in lack, and you think you keep needing that. So all these things are relative to that. So keep on this path and stay strong. We are lions, and I don't mean in an egoic archetypical sense. I mean, study a lion, the essence of it, the heart, the core of what the lion is about. That's what we are, fasting, and all these things are for that. Strength is in the spiritual practices, not what you do at the gym, okay, or not anything that's practically exertive is not strength. Okay, this is an egoic attribution to what strength is. That's all. No, just cut that stuff right off, because that's not what it is or where it is. So we really need to start to resensitize what strength is within us, and it is through love, and it's through also realizing that through each other, implicit in each other, is a reflection of that love, and it's always to kind of traverse that in the moment when you're around people, and if they're a bit quiet in that, it's just because they're associating the surrounding people with, as a reflex response to the people in society, the majority of us, that just want to use you and exploit your kindness and use that, perceive it as a weakness, just to use you as a source, battery source. So we're always in that reflex kind of protection mode and self-defense. So we kind of go introverted and a bit reserved, but that's just a reflex, and we just need to work on traversing that reflex into knowing that the scenario is what you're doing, and it can be you. The scenario is a reflection of what you're doing or how you're perceiving it to be. And this is also a reminder to me and myself as well, that you are the one, the creator, co-creator of the absolute or the transcendental abode So we are co-creators of an effect of that, being the created. And then all things are a symptom from the abundance of that creation. So I just want to remind that, reminded to me also. So I wanted to get this video out there. So right now, guys, I am done. Peace and love. I think me and my friends, I've put some recordings when I've been out and about, and especially in the city centre, and just like, it's almost like a reporting things, because we're like a projection into this octave resonance field that's currently a density what it can't sustain itself on, and beings come in like me and my friends, and we report back on it, and I feel like we send that, reflect on that, the higher realms. And I also have made recordings on my phone when I've been out and about, and it's just been like speaking through spontaneity. Like, it's just been, my recorder's been there, I've just pressed record and started talking, while simultaneously in observation, concurrent to recording, and I've just been saying what I see. I'm reflecting on what the heart feels in contrast to what the current state of affairs and where we're at. So I also want to put some recordings together, get my friends to do some, and put some nice music in the background, and I'll try to post some on here too, and that'll be nice for you as well. It'll be very similar to the philosophers that are on YouTube, Alan Watts, Terence McKenna, and it'll just be nice to maybe go to sleep to, like just different people philosophizing and coming up with soluble conclusions to where we can be in contrast to where we are. So anyway, guys, peace and love. Capricorn Gang here. Like, subscribe. Peace out, man.